Welcome to Spa-Francorchamps, the 2002 running of the Spa 24 Hours, round 7 of the Fia GT Championship, the 7th LG Super Racing Weekend, live on Eurosport. Good morning wherever you are, at home, in a hotel, in a bar, watching anywhere across Europe. Of course, welcome to you watching on British Eurosport. These are pictures live from the circuit this morning. Another beautiful morning high in the Belgian Ardennes. Certainly if you're in the Labra or Freisinger team, if you had to put money on who was going to win on the GT and the NGT leaderboard, you would have to have said the Labra team were a shoo-in for the GT honours and the NGT was likely to be Freisinger. And those two cars are now first and second because of a huge number of dramas for all of their opponents. The Ferraris in the NGT class have all struggled, and the Vipers and the Listers and the Ferraris in the GT class likewise. Every car, including the number 1 and number 54 car, have had problems, but the only difference is the 1 and 54 car have had one minor little drama. Everybody else has had, well, a long-running soap opera. This is then our race leader, Christophe Bouchou and David Terrian's car. They're joined this weekend by Vincent Vos and Sebastian Bourdais. They started the race double stinting tyres and drivers. They have had one loose wheel nut to contend with throughout the entire course of the 18 hours so far. And as the sun beats down on Spa-Francorchamps, they are still in a comfortable lead. Well, let's have a look at what happened while you were away. Nighttime, of course, had fallen by the time we left you last night, and as the night deepened, everybody anticipating perhaps some of the showers that had been promised in the afternoon but had never arrived. Well, the night was dry all the way through, which is not to say that it was without its dramas. Regular pit stops going on, of course, as everybody stayed on their schedule. Points awarded at the 6-hour and the 12-hour mark, and that was the very first focus for everybody, to try and get their cars into point scoring positions at those two marks, at 10 p.m. and again at 4 a.m. Once that was achieved, then there was another 12-hour race to consider for the final set of points. So the motoring continued until shortly before 1 a.m. when the safety car was scrambled following an enormous accident exiting the La Source hairpin between the Car Sport Holland number 3 Viper with Anthony Kumpen at the wheel and a slower Porsche, one of the back marker cars, the Auto Orlando car, the number 58 car, which was entered for the man who runs the Infineon company and another group of his colleagues. Now, that car had lost control at La Source, shot off up the escape road, and as he regained the track, clipped the back of the fast number 3 Viper of Anthony Kumpen. Kumpen okay in the car, but it was absolutely destroyed in a massive barrel roll and fire.
Yeah, there was just a Porsche coming. He was going after La Source. It was going downhill, fourth gear, so you're doing about 180 kilometers. And the car, I don't know, he didn't see him, and he just passed by and he hit him on the left side. And I must say, I never saw a car crash so badly in my whole life, so it was really lucky that Anthony came out.
Well, look at what's left of the Viper. All corners destroyed, front end, rear end impact, the roof blown off by the exploding fuel cell, and Kumpen climbed out of where the roof should have been from the crumpled wreckage of the Viper as it burned all around him. Well, as Mike Haseman said, he was tagged on the downhill run out of La Source in fourth gear, and he pinballed from one side of the barriers to the other and back again 3 times across the track as the car rolled itself into destruction and then caught light. 3 hours behind the safety car, which meant that some drivers actually completed their entire maximum stint behind the safety car. Andre Lotterer, for instance, the ex-Jaguar Formula 3 driver, did his first racing stint as the safety car came out and did 3 hours behind the safety car, was pulled in then just before it came in, didn't even do a single lap of green flag racing in the entire triple first stint of his run in his car. Well, once the safety car came back in, we were left with the Labra Viper atop the timesheets. The Listers, which had been delayed respectively by the number 14 car by a couple of puncture problems and the number 15 car by a brake pad problem, are still running strongly because a number of other cars have had their problems. Towards dawn, the second Freisinger Motorsport car, which at the 12-hour mark was second in the NGT class to its category leader and teammate, also had a problem. And as the sun started to arrive over the trees, we were left with what looked like a classic battle between the Vipers and the Listers. But the Vipers, and there you see the number 12 car on its way to the pits, have had problems.
The race was okay until now, but we got a few problems during the night, but very small problems. We had a puncture on the front wheel, and we came in, we changed the driver, we refueled, and we changed the tires. But when I went out, I lost the rear left wheel. So we lost many times, and we dropped down to third position, but then we came back, and now we are leading since a few hours, and the night was okay. I think the night has been quite long behind the safety car, but now it's okay.
So as David Tarian said, that little lost wheel nut cost them time. They dropped down to third place. But then the race-leading number 3 car was destroyed in that monster accident, and the number 12 Viper, which was ahead of them, has also had a problem. It came sparking into the pits, the belly dragging on the ground. That's because it had broken the front suspension and steering rack, and that car has now dropped from first to 8th place, and it is 17 laps behind the lead number 1 car. So it has lost 20 laps now in the pits to the number 1 Labra Viper, which David Leslie has run pretty much as regular as clockwork as we had expected it to do. One loose wheel nut cost them a couple of laps to getting back to the pits, but other than that, it has been really a paragon of reliability.
It has. They've been here before, they've done this before, and they've gone out and they've gone round and round in circles without any real hassles. That one wheel nut quite late last night was slack, and that lost them a wheel. They were able to crawl round back into the pits, replace that, and off they go. They're doing very good. They're doing double stints on all their tyres. So when a driver gets in, he gets some new tyres. He will go around, do his stint, come in for a refueling, stay in the car, and leave the tyres on. No tyre change. That saves them about 20 seconds each time. And they've had quite a good short time in the pits. We have a list from the middle of the night where you can tell exactly how long people have spent in the pits. And we can see there number 12 car we were just talking about, that was a steering rack that came off, and that was just about 5-10 minutes ago when that actually happened. So you know, spending time in the pit is bad, but the Labra car managed very few minutes, and that is what's winning them this race.
Let's have a word now with Fabio Babini.
Was second, and you had a problem. What happened?
I have the problem for the overtake any car, and in the little corner the driver don't look. My car is pushed to exterior of the barrier. It's impossible to break in. It's the little distance to the barrier.
Do you think you will be able to repair the car and then go back to the track?
Yeah, every equipe is worked too much for to restart. I don't know it's too much time because the car is a problem in the front. It's a problem for the cooling system. I don't know. It's possible to stop for 1 hour.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you see the team working very hard on Babini and Duez's car, the winner of the race at Silverstone, of course, car number 12. And both Belmondo cars still running, both Labra Vipers still running, both Lister Storm still running, and one Porsche in the GT category still running. So in the GT, although we have lost the fastest 3 cars in qualifying, which have all retired, the 2 Ferraris and the Carsport Holland car, both Carsport Holland cars, both BMS Scuderia Italia Ferraris have gone, and the Proton Porsche has gone. We've still got 7 of the 13 GT cars running in some sort of shape or order. But in the NGT category, David, which is of course dominated by Porsche's 993 GTR, we still have 10 of the 15 cars running, and that, you were saying yesterday, the Viper's done so many 24-hour races, so much endurance running, it's a well-tested machine. Well, that's clearly obviously the case with the GT3R. We're looking here at the Freisinger Porsche, leading in NGT and second overall, but it's the reliability of the Porsches above all that has kept the NGT field with still 2/3 of the cars running.
Yes, it is. That car's been around for some time in various guises, and it keeps being modified each year a little bit by Porsche just to make it a bit more reliable, a bit quicker. And they come out, they'll never get the praise they deserve, because they are the NGT class, not the leading class, and as such, you know, you tend to forget about them a little bit, but they're always there. There's always a lot of them, and there's more Porsches entered in this race than anything else, and they're just ever so reliable and keep on going round, and you've got to spend again the least amount of time in the pits. In actual fact, out of all the teams, the Freisinger Motorsport had only spent 12 minutes in the pits, and that was some 10 hours into the race. And when you think of the lead car had spent some 20 minutes in the pits and had done 4 more pit stops, then that was a problem. But just on the left there, we could just see what looked like the lead car. Now,
well,
we know
it
the
did
lead
look
car
like a Labra Viper, but confusingly, obviously, the cameraman missed it. The director has obviously not quite woken up and had his coffee and croissants yet. But there are 2 Labra cars running, and Sod's Law says that it will be the number 2 car that has already got problems and is down in 9th place. Well, we'll try and find out who it was for you in a moment.
It's wonderful. Your car is actually second for Spa.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I mean, we feel proud for Porsche because we are really competitive, and also the reliability seems to be good. Obviously, we are thinking about our class, but the overall result is just great. So if we can keep on going like that, first of our class, we will be sure on the podium, I guess.
How is the car doing? Do you have any problems? Everything is perfect?
Everything is fine on the Porsche. I mean, it's been hard in the night, very long, and if we don't make a mistake, the car should be okay for the end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Stefan Ortelli in the lead at 6 and 12 hours has really done himself no end of good here in the NGT points. He has got himself back into the lead, and the car still leading. He's half a point in the lead over the Ferrari drivers, and now looking like he may take 2nd place overall and class win here.
Yeah, no, completely booked. Wednesday, let's see.
The NTL Guide from NTL Home not only gives you over 200 pages of cable TV listings,
No.
but also features and special offers, and it's just £1 a month for NTL Home customers.
Tuesday? Oh, we're very busy that
Don't
day.
miss your favourite programmes.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
To subscribe to the NTL Guide, call 0800 052 0463.
Hi Mum, how's it going? UK's great, weather's diabolical. I'm well, kids are fine, houses looking
With NTL Home's international call plan, you can call 30 countries from as little as 5p a minute.
Garden though, playing cricket, bowl a bit, bat a bit, catch a lot, had a Barbie, burn the chops, dog ate him, he's okay.
So relax.
Oh yeah, by the way, Jane's pregnant, love to Dad, bye.
From now on, you can spend that little bit longer on the phone. Call 0800 183 0123 to find out how much you could save. NTL Home, one line's all you need.
Live at Spa on Eurosport, the 24 hours 2002. Round 7 of the FIA GT Championship, part of the LG Super Racing weekend. And here you're looking at the 3rd place car overall. This is Bobby Verden-Rowe's regular Lister Storm, the car he has campaigned throughout the FIA GT series so far with Paul Knapfield. Knapfield has left the team, but Bobby being co-driven by David Sterckx, the Belgian, Miguel de Castro, the Spaniard, and young Briton Justin Law. And this car in a remarkable 3rd place overall. David, this not a car built specifically by Lister for the 24-hour race like its number 14 counterpart. This is the regular sprint car, and yet it has seemed, touch wood, to have run problem-free throughout the race. They've had one routine and planned brake change stop, and apart from that, the thing has just been ticking along, zoom, zoom, zoom.
It has. It didn't qualify very high up. It ran further down at the very beginning. But that was just a case of that is the speed of that team, and the team is there to run around consistently, to do a good job. It wasn't the lead car. The lead car's out there doing a much quicker time, but then again, it's had these other problems. So this car's been a really revelation of this race, because it slowly worked its way all the way up. It started off at the very bottom of our timing page, around about sort of 14th, 15th place. And it's worked its way all the way up, and it's now 2nd in class, 3rd overall. And it's doing a good time. You know, it's running around in its moment in time, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. That's only about a second slower than the lead car, the number 1 car, the Viper. So the drivers have kept their heads. They're driving the car very sensibly. They're just doing what is necessary. They're not taking any risks. They haven't been up against a slower car. They haven't damaged any bodywork. No punctures, no breakages, and they're just going round and round. And it's that consistency that pays off at the end of a 24-hour race. So if anybody else does have some problems, then you can see them picking it up. But you can see them at the moment. That's them right beside the number 54 Freisinger Porsche. And that Porsche, remember, is second overall. So it looks like the Lister has just pulled one lap back on the second overall position car.
And that will put them, yes, you're absolutely right, I think, David, that will put them just one lap behind the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche. However, of course, we can expect them to do more laps and more pit stops, rather, because they use their fuel a lot harder. Now, this is the number 14 car, 4th place overall. It had closed to within 25 seconds, rather, of the 15 car just before its pit stop some 10 or 15 minutes ago. And this is, well, the fancied lineup in the car, with Jamie Campbell-Walter and regular partner Nick Springer now leading the championship again, courtesy of assistance from Eric van der Poel and Andy Wallace, both 24-hour veterans drafted in by the Lister team. And despite their dramas, and most of which centres on what you can see, the flapping tape on the damaged left rear bodywork. Early in his stint, the number 14 car driven by Eric van der Poel at that stage was tagged by a slower Ferrari. It punctured the rear tyre. Subsequent to that, they had a damaged brake ducting on the left-hand rear corner, which caused another long pit stop. So they lost 10 minutes in the pits with the puncture and with that drama. Now, just past our commentary position, the number 1 and number 2 Labra cars have both come into the pits. We believe it was the number 2 Labra car that was in the gravel that we caught a glimpse of, which the director didn't. But the number 1 Labra car has also been hit with a stop-and-go penalty, and I believe that's been up on our monitors for quite some while. I believe that they may actually have been black flagged. There down the hill, you just caught a glimpse of all the quick dry that was put down to pick up all the oil and to nurse the track after the fire from Anthony Kumpen's crash. And you can see how far down the hill it was towards Eau Rouge by the time the car actually stopped as a result of that huge accident. As we heard Mike Hazeman say, the car crashed at speed in 4th gear. Well, off goes the number 1 car. I'm sure that was just after its 10-second stop and go. Here is the number 2 car then coming to a halt, and the number 2 car down in 9th place, ran up in the top 3 or 4 early on, but it has had a couple of dramas, not the least of which was a puncture going into Eau Rouge, which spun it 4 times with poor Jean-Claude Lanier on board at 140 plus miles an hour. That's some ride. Well, the Freisinger Porsche still right behind the number 15 Lister Storm. Of course, ahead of it on the road, you're looking there at the 3rd place Lister leading the 2nd place Porsche, with the Ferrari and the only one still going behind it. Now, in the NGT class, as you see, the Ferrari 2nd, the Freisinger Motorsport Porsches 1st and 3rd. But on the road, the Ferrari has now completed 393 laps compared to the 399 of the Porsche. And as the Lister lets the Porsche go once more, the Ferrari knows that there's, David, still 6 laps to make up on the car right in front of them, and, well, less than 6 hours in which to do it. 5 hours and a few minutes. That's
a very tall order to try and do that. The car in front would have to have a problem. You're not simply going to make it up by driving very, very quickly. And even if you're driving 1 to 2 seconds lap faster, which he is at this moment in time, there's certainly not enough hours left in this day for him to pull back the whole of the 6 laps.
Well, that's absolutely right. The Ferrari with its dramas early on, but again, the number 2 car in the pits here. The number 1 car back out on track. His last lap, a 2-minute 53-second lap compared to the 2:27s, 2:30s he was running earlier on. So you can see his 10-second stop and go actually cost him about 25 seconds. Looks like they might still have a little bit of an overheating question mark hanging over this number 2 car, because there's been no rain. Although the night was relatively cool, it wasn't that cool, and there has been a little bit of a question over systems on the Vipers, which do survive long hot races, but it's perhaps the one area where there is still a question mark hanging. There's an awful lot of heat generated. Now look at that left rear wheel. They don't want to have problems with left rear wheels again. Looks like they've got that sorted out as we see the aerial shot of the circuit. They're the double right-hander at Stavolo, the lowest part of the track. Looks like the car's ready to go. Number 1 still leads the race, of course.
Super Racing Weekend live with
Yokohama, power of performance.
And who records your favorite TV program? The digital video recorder from LG. Makes time-slave viewing easy. On a screen extremely thin and extremely wide. Because life's too short to waste time. LG, digitally yours.
the LG Super Racing Weekend live with LG Electronics, digitally yours.
Welcome back to Spa. This is the number 2 Labra Viper, always the number 2. Couldn't be the number 1 car, could it? That's what all their rivals will be thinking. This is the Barrichello to the number 1 car, Schumacher. Now, we saw it in the gravel earlier on, and amazingly, the director has actually found it, or found it a few minutes ago. See it steaming away there at the front. Well, that's probably hot brakes, David, from sitting in the gravel as well as the overheating, but it looks as though they're still looking around the back of the car. Looks as though they may perhaps be trying to find out what put it into the gravel. I don't think a trip into the gravel trap like that is necessarily going to have done too much damage to the back end of the car.
No, generally it would be something at the front if you did any damage going into a gravel trap. But obviously the car's in the pits. They are underneath the right-hand rear corner of the car. The other wheel's been put back on, but that one corner is causing them a bit of concern. So they're diving in to have a look at that. The number 1 car is still leading, despite its 10-second stop-and-go penalty. We're not sure what that was for, but there's been a number of penalties dished out over the during the night. They could be anything from speeding in the pit lane, the wrong number of mechanics working on the car. You're only allowed so many minutes in the pit lane.
No fire extinguisher, no safety visors down on the refueling. All these rules that you have, and when the mechanics are tired, yeah, they come out without their overalls zipped up properly and things like that, and that just costs time and effort. So it will be one of those minor infringements. Nothing dramatic to worry about for them. So the number 1 car then continues to roll on relentlessly. Second place overall still the Freisinger Motorsport car. Third place and fourth place the 2 Lister Storms, now just 35 seconds apart. So whoever is at the helm of number 14, we don't know, I'm afraid, haven't been able to see it close up enough, is closing in fast. And David Leslie doing 2:23 laps now. That's the fastest we've seen the number 14 car go so far this morning. And the Chrysler Viper out front, the number 1 car, responding to that lost time by turning 2:25s. Now, it's about the first time all morning they've been much below 2:28s as well. Most of the other cars doing 2:29s, 2:30s in the GT class. So we know who the 2 quick cars are in the sprint races. And now 18, nearly 19 hours into this 24-hour race, they are still the 2 quick cars, the number 1 Viper and the 14 Lister.
They are without doubt. They're the lead cars in each of these 2 teams. They've got the drivers that count. They've brought in extra drivers of the same caliber to make sure they do an extremely good job, and they are making it count. And obviously that strategy we were talking about yesterday, about what you're going to do, and the number 1 car is playing very much on that strategy. It was running at a pace that was comfortable, around about the 2:30 mark, and they were quite happy with that. And it wasn't until after the brake pad change on the number 14 car they decided 14 car went that much quicker, and they'd be able to respond to that with the number 1 car and just up the pace, and all of a sudden take something like 5 seconds off the lap times, because at this time of the day you're thinking, okay, we've had 18 hours gone and we're looking at what we can do for the last 6 hours, and you really do want to nurse the car home. You're thinking it's making all these funny noises you never heard before, when in actual fact there's probably nothing wrong with it, but you do really look after the car. You brake a little bit earlier, kinder on the brakes, you change gear a little bit slower, kinder on the gearbox, and you just make sure that you can get this car or nurse the car all the way to the finish. And when you've got a lead like the number one Viper has, some, what is that, 8 laps over the second car in their class, although it's only 6 laps over the second place car, which is the NGT car. It's a very big lead, and it's one that they can afford to take their time and make sure they look after it during the rest of the 6 hours that are left.
Well, now, talking about the classes and the points and so on, we've already mentioned that all the classes, or the classes in the FIA GT series at least, got points at quarter and half distance, as well as another full set of points at full distance being available. And those marks have already passed, and those points are already done. In the Lister team, much as you would like to win the race overall, the difference between killing the car to try and make up those 8 laps and not killing the car and sitting in second place, which potentially they can get because they've only got their sister car ahead of them. Potentially at the moment, the Jamie Campbell-Walter, Nicholas Springer points series point situation is looking pretty good. They're 1.5 points behind Bouchou and Terrian in the number 1 car, who are the regular point scorers in the series. And at the moment, the best that they're likely to do without a major drama for the number 1 car is lose another 4 points, because at the end of the race, assuming no dramas for number 1, they'll get another 10 points. Assuming no dramas for Campbell, Walter and Springer, and that they pass their teammate, which seems highly likely, they will get 6 points. So at the very worst, they can go away from here 5.5 points behind, with still 3 races and 30 full sets of points left to go. So it's hardly a nightmare. The real nightmare would be if they kill the car and don't actually pick up anything. Then they lose a full 10 points to Boucher and Terrian.
That's right. I mean, they came here knowing that there was a lot of points on offer, points equivalent to 2 full races in actual fact, and they knew if they were to go out early on, that they would walk away just with championship lost basically for the rest of the season. So they came here to work on the basis that it is a 24-hour race. They want to do 24 hours. They didn't have the strategy of going out to do the first 6 hours to get some points, the first 12 hours to get some points, and then not worry about it. They came here purely long distance in mind, making sure they can get to the finish and score regular points. Now, they have scored regular points in the first 2 parts of that, and they're, as you said, some 1.5 points away from being in the overall lead. So everyone was terribly worried that if one of the 3 top teams, or 2 of the 3 top teams, dropped out and third one won, then the championship would be all but over. But at this moment in time, the way it looks, with the Chrysler Viper in first and the Lister Storm sitting at the moment in 4th, which is second in the championship, but hopefully with a bit of luck could be up to 3rd or even 2nd in class. Then it wouldn't be such a big difference in points, and the championship's still wide open when they've got another 3 races in Italy, Britain and Portugal still to go.
Of course, coming to Donington Park in the first weekend of October. Won't exactly be this kind of weather, but you'd better make sure you're there. So the championship leaders coming into the race, the Ferrari of Delatras and Pacini, out before scoring any points, long before the 6-hour mark. At the moment, the number 1 Viper leads, the 54 Freisinger Porsche 2nd, and leads NGT, Lister's 3rd and 4th.
With LG Electronics, digitally yours. That was the LG Super Racing Weekend with
Yokohama, power of performance.
Look left for what's next. And eyes right.
That's because he came down the pit lane. Lawrence Pierce tried to close the door on him as Jamie's arguing back about something. But it is the left-hand side that they're looking at. Now, we do know that they had a brake pad change earlier on this morning in the morning hours around 8 a.m. But David, it looked about the left rear corner they were looking at a little bit to me, and that's where the damage was earlier on that really started the delays for that car. It was hit by a slower Ferrari, a 360 Modena Ferrari, when Eric van der Poel was driving in the second stint of the race. Lost 5 minutes as a result of the pursuant puncture, and a further 5 minutes when they had to change the brake ducting inside the wheel rim, or inside the wheel arch, because it was cutting into the tyre and potentially therefore damaging every other new tyre they put on the car for the rest of the race. So they bit the bullet then, got on with it. Since then, it has been relatively trouble-free. They had a little bit of a worry with the gearbox just as darkness was falling. They have had a pad change this morning, as has the sister car, but it looks like this car, or the car we were just watching, which is, as I said, being built especially for the race, seems to be the one that's actually jinxed in the Lister team, because the number 15 car, as 14 gets pulled back in, see the accident damage taped up there. The 15 car still seems to be avoiding the pits to a very much greater extent. And no matter how much quicker you drive, David, the more time you spend in the pits, the more that is negated in terms of your overall race pace.
It is. You've got to stay out on the circuit. Being on the circuit makes all the difference in the world. And as you said, we've seen their teammate, the car 15 Lister Storm, going out there, and the drivers are not the ultimate, and they're not professional drivers. They're out there, a couple of them are, but most of them are out there to enjoy themselves. They've been going around nice and steady, nice and consistently, and that consistency has got them to second place in class and third place overall, just because they've kept themselves away from the pits. But now the car 14 being pushed back into the garage, or into the box as they call it here in Belgium, and they're going to do some more work on that. I'm not sure what. They're looking at the rear of the car. There's another mechanic with his head inside looking at the dash. Jamie was looking down at the dash, saying something was wrong with it. Whatever it was, Lawrence wanted to send him back out there, was trying hard to shut the door, and Jamie was trying hard to keep it open. So I think Jamie's won that particular battle, and they're going to have to fix it before he gets onto the circuit, whatever's actually wrong with it.
What you're looking at here is the Stefan Ortelli Emmanuel collar on Romain Dumas Porsche. This Freisinger Motorsport car has run faultlessly, barely missed a beat and barely troubled the pit crew at all. They must be having a really tough time actually staying awake, the pit crew of the Freisinger 54 car, because they only see it about every hour and a half, and there's sort of no drama at all with it. It is running second overall, just behind the Lister Storm number 15, which is in third place overall. And this Freisinger car really just keeps up a relentless pace, lapping now at 2 minutes 30. The Lister Storm ahead of it, its last lap, 2 minutes 24, and the lead Viper, 2 minutes 28. So you can see how quick the Porsche is going. The Ferrari behind it, second in class. The sole 360 Modena still remaining from the three that the JMB team entered, also doing 2 minute 30 laps. Third place is the 55, the number 2 string Freisinger Motorsport Porsche. Fourth place in the NGT class, the 64 Porsche. That's the Surtec Motorsport car of American Vic Rice, who entered the race because he happened to be in Europe on business and always fancied racing here. That's co-driven by the Austrian amateur Manfred Juras, French ex-Formula Renault driver Julien Piguet, and French Super Tourism and GT driver Stefan Dowdy. And a less likely lineup, it's almost impossible to imagine, but they are actually now in 9th place overall, 4th in the NGT class, 5th in the NGT class, the Cycle Motorsport team of Gabriel Russo and and Luca Giudi. And they share with the Kiwi Andrew Bagnall and with American Philip Collin. So they are also in the NGT class, but in 10th place overall, because, David, the much fancied Vipers and the Ferrari, well, the Ferraris have gone, the 2 Car Sport Holland cars have gone, but the Belmondo Vipers, which had looked to be fairly in contention early on, have now been beset by a number of problems, and indeed their number 12 car has dropped out the top 10. It's now 34 laps behind the leaders after an hour-long stop for what, as yet, we have been unable to trace in terms of problems under the bonnet.
Yes, they came in, and we've seen it sparking underneath the car earlier on, and came into the pits immediately, wheeled it back into the garage to do work on it, and then we've seen them taking the steering rack off. And when you're doing things like taking steering racks off these cars, that's a very big job indeed. So we knew they were into some major changes. Whatever it was on the suspension to do with that steering rack was obviously caused them very deep concern, and it had to be fixed and straightened. And now that's a car coming in a big hurry. We take it because of the speed that car's been doing just lately. It has to be Bobby Vernon Rowe who's in there driving at this moment in time, and he's obviously trying his hardest to make up as much time as possible He did just manage to get himself onto the same lap as the number 54 Freisinger Porsche, but having just done that, he's immediately into the pits. And remembering what we said yesterday, how long this pit lane is, you come in all the way through the Formula 1 pit lane, round a corner at the end. It looks as though you're going back onto the circuit, but you're not. You're staying to the right-hand side of the white line, and then all the way down the original pit lane here at Spa. And the Lister is more than halfway down that pit lane. So it's a very long, slow entry into the pit lane. The pit lane, they've all got speed limiters, which is fine on the F1 pit because it's nice and flat. But when you turn around and come down now, this is down a hill. And if you sit with your foot on the speed limiter, you're liable to actually go over the speed because the hill itself will actually take you over that speed limit coming down there. But there you can come see them coming in. Are they going to have a driver change? Yes, the driver's door opens, certainly.
I think Bobby is just double stinted, hasn't he? Or possibly not, actually. They're having a look inside the wheel arches. This is looking for the pickup from the rubber. There is an awful lot of rubbish around. There you see Bobby's familiar orange and silver helmet. Your former teammate in the Acuria Cross Cavaliers in the British Touring Car Championship, well, a decade ago, I guess now, when you were both very much younger men. And he gets out. I can't see who's in.
There's somebody with a white crash helmet. I know Justin Law has
that would be Justin Law, I think. We're pretty sure that he's the only one who's got an unmarked helmet. So that car now in third place still, and 7 laps behind the race-leading #1 car. Here is the car that's second in NGT then. Chris Fisher, Christian Pescatori. It's probably not a literal translation, so anybody with genuine Italian blood in them, please don't rip your hair out. He shares with the 3 Andreas Montemni, Gabagnati and Bertolini are the 4-strong lineup in the car. This is the sole remaining JMB Ferrari, and considering the other 2 didn't even make it to a full FIA GT distance, i.e. 3 hours, the fact that this is still going with only just under 4 hours left to run is a pretty remarkable result for the team. Here is the 3rd car in NGT. This is the 55 Freisinger Motorsport Porsche. Again, it hasn't really troubled the pits much. It has had a couple of offs, though. We saw it in the gravel trap in the early hours of the morning, just before dawn. But again, Bert Longin being drafted in with a couple of stars. Mark Lieb, who has shared the 54 car with Stefan Ortelli to victory already once this season, one of Porsche's factory drivers, a string of them who race in Super Cup and are then super subbed into wherever Porsche need a driver. Also Andre Lotterer, the ex-Jaguar Formula 3 driver, former German F3 racer as well. And Lotterer, well, good story behind him. His first stint in the car, as they were running strongly, was in the nighttime hours. He got in for a triple stint just as the yellow flags came out for the huge accident that destroyed Anthony Kumpen's car. And they pulled him out just before the 3-hour mark, which is the maximum you're allowed to do in one stint, still under the yellow flags behind the safety car. So he did an entire triple stint behind the safety car. Boring or what?
Yeah, that's not very good, really. When you're behind the safety car, it's not a lot you can do. You just drive there slowly, try and conserve as much fuel as possible so that you can go as long as possible on that tank full of fuel, rather than having to come in at any point during the safety car period. It was a very long safety car period because there was a lot of damage, not only to the cars that were involved in the incident we talked about earlier on about Kumpen's car and how much it was destroyed, but also to the Amoco barrier, and it took quite a while to repair that Amoco barrier. And of course you can't go racing without safety in place, and as that has got some spectators right behind it just near the start and finish line, then that had to be put back together. So they're out there with the welders putting the Amoco barrier back together for quite some considerable time. So a lot of people had a very easy run during the middle of the night. So if some of these teams had some slower drivers that they weren't sure about their pace, then that would be an ideal time to get them out there, and they'll get them a good time in the car and say, look, you've had a fantastic race, you've done lots of hours in it, and I'm sorry you didn't go awfully fast, but that's somehow it works that way sometimes.
Them's the breaks. I'm not sure that Andre Lotterer is the guy you would automatically want to put in as the guy behind the safety car for 3 hours. He's got plenty of pace, even though he's not the world's most experienced endurance driver. Well, there is Bobby Verden-Rowe, and it looks as though they are about to be either hit with some drama or a penalty, judging by his facial expressions. Maybe he was, I don't know, caught for speeding in the pit lane, or maybe there was a little bit of an infringement with the way that the refueling is done. There are a number of rules not starting the car while the refueling is still going on, not having anybody else touching the car while the refueling is going on, no more than 4 people are working on the car at any one time. You must have the visors down with the fueling guys, all the race suits must be done up, got to have a fire extinguisher in the pit lane and manned at the same time, and so on and so on. Very sensible safety regulations, but obviously Bobby not particularly happy with, I don't know, maybe is he talking about pad knock-off, or has he got a big vibration somewhere, do you think?
I don't know what it is. He doesn't agree with it, whatever it is.
The waving hands there to me either signified that he thinks they've got a big vibration, or that they might have pad knock-off, which is quite often either if you warp the brake disc so it doesn't run true in a vertical plane, or if the wheel bearing starts to go and the wheel wobbles around, the brake disc on a straight actually forces the brake pads away from it and back towards the caliper, which then means that when you jump on the brake where you would normally do, it takes an extra pump to get the brake pads actually up towards the disc, and that's not really something you would want. Both listers have had precautionary brake pad changes due to wear, but they've had a long brake pedal since the early hours of the race in both cars, and they've learned to live with it, but perhaps those little hand signals signifying that things may be getting a little worse for the number 15 Lister Storm. This is the Belmondo car in the pits, car 12, I think. We saw 11 running quite happily a moment or two ago. The extra number on the front down in the left-hand corner, can't quite see it. Let's have a look, it is 11. So this is the car that's 7th overall, their better placed car, the 12 car you see now in 11th place overall. But don't forget, because we've got so many NGT cars that have run faultlessly up in the top 10, they are still 4th and 6th in class, so still in proper point scoring positions. And in 6th position in the GT class, Babini and Duez's car, the winners of the Silverstone race. As we said earlier on, we spoke to Fabio Babini just after, or while they were having that steering rack change. What had actually happened, he told us, was that he'd been forced into the barriers trying to lap a slower car, and it had broken the steering rack and the right front suspension, which is why the car was dragging its belly coming in. But as he was working, they were still trying to reassemble the car, and he said, I think we've also got a cooling problem in the car that they were going to try and fix at the same time. So that car has been substantially delayed.
And who records your favorite TV program? The digital video recorder from LG. Makes time-delay viewing easy. On a screen extremely thin and extremely wide. Because life's too short to waste time. LG, digitally yours.
The LG Super Racing Weekend live.
Live at Spa, Eurosport in the 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps. This is round 7 of the FIA GT Championship. You just caught a glimpse of the leader coming into the pits for his regular pit stop just after the top of the hour. It's now completed 438 laps in 20 hours of racing. Goodness me, 20 and a quarter hours of racing. And 438 laps leads the race, the number 1 Chrysler Viper from the 54 Freisinger Motorsport Porsche, which is 6 laps adrift. This car is in 3rd place, 2nd in the GT class, 8 laps adrift of the race leader. But the sister car, the number 14 car, has been sitting in the Lister pits now for 6 laps. It's dropped from 4th to 5th overall, still 3rd place in NGT. Sebastian Bourdais there, ready to board the number 1 Labra Viper. They are still double stinting car and driver, and double stinting the tyres as well. And out will get Christophe Bouchou, the lead driver in this team, the reigning FIA GT champion, and from the body language there, he was hardly hauling himself out of the car, was he, David? Cool as a cucumber, and he's only lapping at NGT pace, so they know they've got 8, 10, 12 laps potentially in hand on their closest rivals, and they are just cruising now for the final 3.5 hours.
They've got a strategy worked out, they know what they're doing, and they need to just go along and make no mistakes. So when he came in, he wanted out of the car, he got out of the car. He knows he can get out and change drivers quite easily before the best part of 100 litres of fuel goes into that car. That is the thing that takes most of the time. After the fuel is finished, then it can be a tyre change and hopefully nothing else at all. So we can see the wheel went on there a little bit tight onto the pegs. Obviously these cars now running for over 20 hours are very, very hot indeed, and you know, things do expand a little bit, and the odd thing will become a little bit tighter, a little bit slack, depending on the expansion rates and different materials. So it's just cool, cautious. They've got it sussed, they know what they're doing. They're going to, as you said, cruise towards the end. They've got this massive lead at this moment in time. 6 laps over the second place overall in the car, and even more over the number 2 car in their class, which is obviously what they're fighting about mostly. It'd be very nice to win the 24 hours outright, of course, but certainly they need points for the championship. They're looking for championship points.
Topping up the cooling system again. Now, this is still a bit of a bugbear with the number 1 and number 2 Labra cars. It has a pressurized, no-loss cooling system, which they have to keep topping up, and that's what they were doing with that canister there on the left-hand side of the picture. Also interesting to note how long it did take to get that left rear wheel on. Obviously the mechanics being very, very cautious. That's been their only glitch so far. They did misthread a nut, and leaving the pits earlier on, David Terrian into his first stint, 6 hours into the race. He was the 4th driver to take the car on. Into his first stint, he lost the wheel on his outlap, and that was courtesy of a poorly threaded nut. And as David was explaining earlier yesterday, the way that works is that the nuts themselves are fairly soft aluminium, but the hub itself is very, very much more resistant to wear, and if you cross-thread the nut, it actually strips the nut rather than the hub, which is the reverse of what you would normally find in a road car, where the nut survives but the thread on the stud is normally the thing that goes. Out comes the number 12 car, routine stop for them as well, but the 11 car still at a standstill. It has been now for, well, a couple of laps. It's dropped down to overall, and the number 12 car has dropped down to 11th place. There's Eric van der Poel. He, of course, is sharing the Lister Storm with Jamie Campbell-Walter, with Nicholas Springer and with Andy Wallace. And looks like he may be perhaps the next one to go into the car.
Well, when the car came in, we've seen Jamie sitting in there, and whatever was wrong with it, it was obviously something that was going to take more than 2 minutes to fix, and they wheeled it back into the pits. So we haven't seen at the moment whether it's still in the pits or it's back out. No, certainly it looks like it's back out, looking at the time and scoring sheets.
Would be interesting if the camera there had just pulled back a little bit to show the car in the garage or not. Anyway, Sebastian Bourdais safely at the helm of the number 1 car, the race leader. Now he will continue from what's now quarter past midday here at Spa until quarter past 2 at Spa, and then hand over the car to whoever's going to do the final hour and 45 minutes to finish the race. I can't imagine that they will now go on to single stinting, having run relentlessly on this double stint. As we saw earlier, right from the beginning of the race, every time they put a driver in, they give him a new set of tyres, and he lives with those tyres throughout his stint. You never get second-hand tyres from somebody else that they might have bitten lumps out of or worn flat. You have your own tyres, you keep them alive for yourself, for your stint, which is actually, I think, very good discipline for the drivers as well. You've got no whining and moaning about whose tyres you got, and having second-hand tyres from somebody else means that the car is yours for the duration to do with exactly what you feel you need to do. Van der Poel still chatting to some of the media here, of course, as one of Belgium's top racing drivers and one of the stars of this race, very much in the media focus. And as we have alluded to several times, an enormous number of Belgian drivers turning out year after year after year, and even when they stop their racing careers, like another real Belgian racing hero in this event, particularly Pierre Dieudonné, the organisers keep them involved. Dieudonné involved in the running of the race, of course. with the Orica team, with the Mazdas, and latterly with the Vipers. He has got so much experience of racing 24 hours as a driver and a team manager, and now he's using all that experience to allow the organisers to run an impressively smooth 24-hour operation. The 15 Lister Storm currently being chased down by the Belmondo Viper. In front of them, a car that we saw a little bit of yesterday, 11th overall, the number 100 Ferrari 360 Modena. Not a regular FIA GT car, although it probably should be the rate it's going. This is the Loris Kessel entered car, and it is 360 Modena, 2002 spec car, just like all the others in the JMB colours. Good driver lineup as well, interesting lineup. They've got Alex Caffey and Andrea Chiesa, two ex-Grand Prix drivers. Emanuele Moncini and somebody called Yarman. Now there is the number 14 Lister Storm in the pits, up in the air, and with work going on inside the car. And David, that suggests to me something perhaps like starter motor, perhaps like gearbox.
Looks more like possibly a gearbox. It's unusual to see a car up on stands during a race. If it goes up on stands, then certainly you're in there for quite some time. And it looks like whatever they're doing, they're working on it as quickly as they can, but they're in there for a period of time, and I would think Jamie, who was sitting in the seat originally, has probably now got out in order to let them carry on and do whatever work is needed to, but he is now dropping down, has now dropped down to 7th overall, and the Belmondo Vipers number 11 machine just now has gone up to 6th overall. So it is these problems that are slowing the big GT cars down, and the lack of problems in the NGT cars that have now got them into 2nd, 4th and 5th place overall.
So Jamie Campbell-Walters, Lister Storm, 2nd in the championship, stationary in the pits, but the points leaders roll on in car number 1, leading the race.
And who records your favorite TV program? The digital video recorder from LG. Makes time's live viewing easy. On a screen extremely thin and extremely wide, because life's too short to waste time. LG, digitally yours.
The LG Super Racing Weekend live with LG Electronics, digitally yours.
Welcome back to Le Mans. You're looking at the second to Le Mans, to the Spa 24 hours. Dear, oh dear. You're looking at the 2nd place car overall, and now at our race leader, the Chrysler Viper of Sébastien Bourdais at the moment at the wheel. Christophe Bouchou, David Terrian, the points leaders in the GT series now, and Vincent Voss. That is the overall race leader by 5 laps now from the number 54 Freisinger Motorsport Porsche, and the Freisinger car just slowly but surely reeling in the Ferrari 360 Modena in front of it. The Ferrari 2nd in the NGT class and 4th place overall, but it is 6 laps behind the Porsche, and David Leslie looks like it's about to go a 7th down.
Yes, the Porsche has just slowly been working away, taking its time and been catching it. It's not in a hurry. It knows that you know, it's got a good lead and it'll work away, but it is working away quite quickly. They haven't backed off, unlike the leader of the GT class with the Labra Viper. They've backed off a little bit and decided to try and look after it. This Porsche, they're just pushing all the time. They're constantly pushing, and they're going as quick now as they ever have been during the whole race time, and losing no time whatsoever, but very equal on pace with the Ferrari. Unfortunately, the Ferrari spent more time in the pits. They've had a similar number of pit stops, but the Ferrari just takes longer to change the wheels, longer to fill the fuel, longer to do any sort of normal routine maintenance servicing, and that's what's dropped it so far back down behind the Porsche.
Well, Romain Dumas at the moment at the helm of the 54 car, and it is just relentless in its reliability at the moment, this car, and that's hopefully not going to put the curse on it. But I'm very, very impressed with the way that the 360 Modena has gone. All right, it is 5 or 6 laps down on the Porsche, but on the other hand, we've never seen one race this far in an endurance race, and the other two cars in the team, which were, let's say, being less stressed by their drivers because they weren't pushing quite so hard, they didn't even make it to the 3-hour mark. So very impressed indeed with the way, and again, I think this is a factor of the professionalism of the drivers in both these cars compared to quite a number in the field. When you get really strong drivers, not only does the car go quickly, but they're better at making it go quickly over a long distance and over a long period of time by precise gear changes, precise braking points, precise use of traffic, avoiding all the car damaging things that amateur drivers tend to run into.
That's the big difference between them. There's a difference between the professional drivers and the amateur drivers. Professional drivers are so much more consistent. They're there all the time. As you say, they're always positioning the car on the circuit at the same time. It's a long circuit, this, over 4 miles round, so it takes a lot of concentration to get a good lap, to get around all those corners correctly and not make any mistake on any one of them, and then have a somewhat slower lap. So the professional drivers, they're there, they're consistent in their times, they're consistent in the lap times. You've got to remember that the amateur drivers who are here for the weekend, they're having a fantastic time. They've made a lot of effort to get here. They've had to make sure they've got the right license, international race license, in order to get here to race, and you know, that costs a lot of money to get through all the various other formulas and things to be able to have a license like that. And they come here, and they're here for the weekend to enjoy themselves, and they do enjoy themselves, and they have a fantastic time. Now, we've seen that more so with the number 15 Lister Storm. We've got Bobby Verdenroe, we know, as a semi-professional driver who's very, very quick, but his 3 teammates with him are somewhat a little bit slower. Okay, Justin Law's a young lad, he's coming up through, and he wants to be that professional racing driver, and he is getting a little bit quicker. But the other two guys, they're purely here for the weekend, they're purely here to enjoy themselves, and they're out there, they're running around. They come out of their car, okay, it may not have been as quick over a whole 1-hour race distance stint as what some of the other drivers are, but they come out with a big smile on their face. They're having a fantastic time. They've got away from their businesses, whatever it is that causes them stress during the week, and they're here doing something that is very stressful, but they think of it as relaxation, and they've come back and they're really enjoying it. And if these people can get to the end of this race, you know, they're going to walk away thinking it has made their year.
Absolutely. I tell you what, that team of drivers, Bobby probably included actually, having never done 24 hours in the Lister, would have been happy if they could have paid to guarantee a finish.
I'm sure.
Now, if you had said to them, I guarantee that with 3 hours and a half left to go, you will be running in 3rd place, they would have said, you are absolutely barking mad. Team of drivers, 3 of whom who have never even sat in a Lister Storm before this week. It just beggars belief almost that they have had the run of good fortune. Now then, just flashed up onto our screen, 14 exclusion. It sounds as though, for reasons that we don't know, I'm afraid we are a very, very long way away from the pits at the moment to find out. The number 14 Lister Storm has been excluded from the race. We're on air for another hour. I'm going to send David down now, if he doesn't mind. It's a 10-minute walk down there and back, David, but we need to know why the Lister has been excluded, and we will find out as soon as we can. We'll get the news to you as soon as we can, but that is the number 14 Lister Storm. Eric van der Poel, Jamie Campbell-Walter, Nicholas Springer and Andy Wallace excluded from the race. Now, how that affects them is immediately at the 24-hour mark, they will score no points. What I want to know also is whether or not the points that they have already scored at 6 and 12 hours will be allowed to stand. If not, then we will find Nicholas Springer and Jamie Campbell-Walter, as well as Andrea Piccini and John Denny Delatraz, scoring nothing in this race, while Christophe Boucher and David Terrian in the number 1 car with their co-drivers will score 20 points if they continue and continue in what seems like a victorious vein, and that, I'm afraid, will all but blow this year's championship wide apart, because Boucher and Terrian at the moment will gain a slender maybe 5, maybe 6 point lead over Campbell-Walter and Springer if they continue to the end of this race. In fact, they will go 11.5 points ahead on the way that the points have been added up so far if they win it. However, if they get a 20-point lead on the rest of the field, I'm afraid in 3 remaining races with only 30 points total on offer, it's unlikely that they will be effectively or easily reeled in. Well, that is a major drama. The Lister in the pits, as we saw, major work going on, and it was in 7th place on the timing screen when we saw this message coming up. As I say, we are being told on the timing screen.
Yeah, it's a bit like going for a Group 3, a listed race, then coming back to top weights. But again, I can't get away from the fact that 95 down to a 93 mark, and to me the horse is running better now he's settled in. Trip's ideal, that was over same distance as today, 1 mile. Draw.
It's Philippe Bulgalski at 7-2 who won here last year in a non-championship event. The Brits, Richard Burns and Colin McRae, 6 and 7-1. And local hero Armin Schwartz isn't fancied. He's 50-1.